this is Sixfornine's second studio album. In the second album, they've tried to change a few things up. Now, I've looked a little into their first album because I kind of have only noticed this band through Parallel Universe, so looking them up myself, I realised there was a first album, and I obviously had to check that out to kind of see just where they've come from, if they've done any kind of evolution, if the sound's kind of evolved, adapted, changed, because that all kind of comes into context. You can't really review an album on its own, because if it's just the exact same clone copy from the previous album, I could just listen to this, say it's a 10 out of 10, and then go back and just see they've just done it all exactly the same, and they've just copy and printed, which brings the score massively down. So I've looked into a bit of the first album, but it's basically been skipped through. I'm basically just heard Parallel Universe by this band. Now, looking online for this band, this album came out last year, 2019, and it got a fair few really good reviews. Some sites actually had this in their top 20s of album of the year. One site had this at number 12, somewhere around there, although their number 1 was bloody god awful, and coming in number 2 or 3 was the album by Tool, which is probably in my top worst albums of the year because it sucks, and that band loves the smell of their own fart, seeing that every track is around 9 minutes upwards, yet they don't fill it with anything. But they think they are genius. So kind of goes to show that this site can't really take credit for it. But a few people have said this is a fantastic album, and it's a lot better than their first album. It's in like the top 20 album of the year, and I kind of wanted to look into it and just see why do they think this. I've read reviews about this album to see what people have thought, and people give this thing a lot of credit, and are rating it about 8 upwards. My girlfriend really likes this, although she just listens to whatever. She won't even listen to an entire album all the way through because she doesn't have the attention span for it, so you can see how much credit you can take from her. So, yeah, I've seen people like it and rate it highly, but the rest of the things surrounding it suck ass, so I can't take their credit for it. My girlfriend likes it, but she doesn't have an attention span, so I can't really take her credit. So, what do I think? Now, the album, when I listened to it, I had kind of like mixed opinions about it. It has a fair few really kind of good aspects about it. Then the more I kind of listen to it, it's like I'm just constantly coming back to this to try and find something good. And the fact that I have to keep coming back to try and prove to myself that there is something more here, or there's something good that I'm missing, kind of goes to say that I'm not finding it. I'm constantly just trying to find something good about it, but I'm not. It kind of goes to say there isn't really much that is great about this album. So let's go into the good things that I kind of found in this kind of album. They have a unique kind of theme and kind of tone through this album, which is where it kind of steps up compared to their previous album, which kind of sounds like your typical kind of metal, hard rock kind of thing. That's another thing. This band is labelled as progressive metal. I would not call this metal. I would kind of call this hard rock. And as far as progressive goes, I wouldn't even really say it is that progressive. It is basically a hard rock album, and that is kind of as far as it goes. There's probably, you could argue, a few progressive elements in one song maybe, but other than that, it's just hard rock. It is not metal. Metal, you have a flood of solos, you have leads, rewinds, you have complex song structures. This doesn't really have any of that. So what the hell's metal about it? And then some people say, oh, to be metal, basically just turn the gain up and there you go, you're in metal territory. You don't have to do anything else, you can play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. But as long as there's a lot of gain through it, that is pure metal at the core, because people genius. But obviously that's a load of bollocks, and people like that are fakes, and I don't know what the fuck they're on about. So yeah, basically all this is just a hard rock album, and coming off of their first album, it was basically just a hard rock sounding album that had solos in pretty much every single track. Coming into Parallel Universe, as I was just mentioning, it does have a theme through it. Now if you look at this album cover, which is very kind of mystical, kind of sci-fi spiritual, and then the title of it, Parallel Universe, that is kind of the theming and tone that this album actually has persisting through it, which is quite unique and kind of special, and it's the thing that kept drawing me in. But the thing is they try to have this theme, but it doesn't always actually introduce itself into every single song. So if you take a few tracks, like the first one, Every Cloud Has a Silver Lining. Now, technically all this is basically just a hard rock song like any other, with elements of a kind of spiritual, kind of sci-fi type of theme in places like the pre-chorus. And that's pretty much it. The second track, Life Devouring Demons, again doesn't really have the theming throughout this thing. And that's the problem, the theming, which is what I find the most interesting thing about this album, about being all spiritual and very deep and sci-fi and things like that. That was the thing that really stood out to me, because it was a very interesting sound, it was an interesting tone that they had going, and the fact that it sounded quite spiritual, I just found that quite interesting, because it's not the norm, it is not the typical metal hard rock, let's say, sound, and therefore it was kind of interesting. But the fact that they don't stick to it kind of makes a few of these songs quite stale. So that's kind of a problem. Now, if you get into songs like Never Ending Road, More Than Words Can Say, as well as Counting Stars in brackets, A Parallel Universe, this does kind of have the theme running through, with elements where it kind of steps out a little bit. But these are the strongest 3 tracks that really seem to incorporate this unique sound and tone. As for the rest of this album, it just is kind of like hard, typical rock stuff with just like an effect pedal that is kind of altered the sound a little bit. But all the playing is basically just typical kind of power chord stuff, as well as very, very basic song structure. It's just basically a pedal and a tweak of a knob that just gets them into this kind of interesting sound. Does that make this very unique, just the fact that they've found a unique tone? Or is the good musicianship where they can get a unique tone and then play in a style that also matches the unique tone, instead of just using a tone? I don't see that as talent, I see that as just, you've got a good buy on this product. And that's your talent, that's what you're putting forward. I got this new pedal and look at me, I'm a great musician because I utilised it. No, that's a load of crap. So Every Cloud Has a Silver Lining starts off kind of cringeworthy, because it's basically just gang vocals of I'll tell you the story of the woman, da 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 da. It's just like that, it's like, Christ. The fact that this starts off and it's immediately just like, no, and you want to turn it off. Great start, but the riff you kind of get for your intro, it's again kind of chords, but it's got a nice kind of groove and a beat to it, so it's like, I do kind of appreciate this like little kind of phrase that they got going for this intro of this track. The first verse, the vocalist, he decides to put his vocal mix and blend it completely into the rest of the music. So instead of having him, you know, like a step higher, so he's clear and above everyone else so you can hear what he's saying, no, he's been mushed into everything, so he's really mushy, and then they distort him as well. So I don't have a clue what the hell he's saying. I can barely fucking hear him, and then all of a sudden he comes out extremely crisp and clear at the other side, and it's just like, that was... I don't know what the hell that was. It was just a mess. And a little kind of silly. But yeah, then near the end of the verse, he comes out kind of clean and everything. It's like, this is kind of fine and everything. I still kind of like the rhythm they've chosen with, and the kind of soundscape that they've gone with. The best part, I say, is basically just the pre-chorus, because everything goes that step further into the theme that works for the album, which everything goes quite clean, and the soundscape opens up, which gets you that kind of like space kind of sound, like you're in a vast space, and it's very mystical. The fact that they've just opened up the sound and everything goes quite clean, and then the effect they put on the voice to where it kind of trails off and everything, I think works. But then when it goes into the chorus, it's just got this kind of nice kind of flowing, I'm just going to play the A chord, maybe change to the B chord kind of thing. And then the vocalist has still that kind of effect on his voice that really helps push things. But it's just typical. Everything is just chord progressions, as well as simplistic structure. And the only uniqueness, cool thing about it is basically just the effect on the voice, and then the tones and effects that have been plugged into the guitars. The only interesting thing comes from the pre-chorus, because they actually open the sound up, and notes kind of have their moment to breathe, and I can actually hear all the intricacies. And because the space is so open and empty, when they actually put a sound in there, it means I have a lot of focus on this one single note that they play, and it has to, step over the boundaries, because you've just got these few little kind of notes and little plays here and there to progress the song further, because they use an empty kind of space. So everything has to work a lot more, because it's not filled with a dozen notes. See, there's nowhere to hide. And it just really helps push that vibe that they're going for. So that's basically the best portion. There is a solo in the song. It doesn't hardly last, which is a darn shame, because going to hear the previous album, there was a fair few solos in that friggin' thing. It's quite lengthy. It's basically like a typical kind of hard rock guitar, so where someone who's just like mediocre, you don't really give your time to him, but he gets the job done type of thing. This is a poor excuse and a very short solo, so it's just like, I like having solos, but it's so kind of pants. It's just like, even I don't see why you bothered, to be fair, because it's just so shocking and atrocious. The following track, Life Devouring Demons, again, it's not really a great track, because the verse, the voice is just so bloody distorted. I can't understand what he's saying, and it's not musical because it's just a lot of distorted noise. It's not clear. I don't understand what he's saying. It's not really kind of like an actual note that you can use vocally. It is just noise. So when you go into singing, it's like, what note is he singing in? It's like, well, there isn't any. He's not singing in a single note. They've shoved a shit ton of effects into him to make him all fucking distorted as hell, and he's mumbling and grumbling. It sounds atrocious. So, again, this song I think has a solo which is pants again, and bollocks, if any actually. I don't even know if it has one, because it's so bloody bland. I don't know if it really counts as a solo, or just an intriguing lead riff type of shit. It's pretty atrocious. Bullet Off Its Course is kind of a melodic track, so yeah, this is probably the melody of the album. A reaction channel on YouTube heard it and said the way it started, they thought it was going to be all screams and everything. I don't think the start of it is anywhere close to being that heavy. It is basically just something like Papa Roach, where it's just like it sounds heavy, but it really actually isn't. It's just chords, just with the gain turned up, and that's basically it, which doesn't amount to this is going to be some kind of brutal metal. And then they were shocked that the verse was so melodic. It's like, the guys are idiots, basically, this React channel. Yeah, the verse things kind of go melodic, and it's decent because it is basically the first time you actually get the best from the vocalist throughout the song. Like the pre-chorus in every kind of silver lining and kind of chorus aspect of Life Devouring Demons, his voice is fine in them aspects, but again, it's basically portions of songs. As for Bullet Off Its Course, his voice is great the whole way through, which is about friggin' time, seeing that this is the fucking third track where you actually can hear the singer properly throughout, which is pretty ridiculous that that has to be the case. As far as kind of like the melody that is being played through the verse, it's very simplistic, but it is very effective nevertheless. Simplicity sometimes does work. Like, I know I keep talking on this channel about how I don't like simplicity, but sometimes being simple means, as I say, there's no room to hide. You really have to make it work if you've got something so simple, to make it that effective and really connect with the audience. And again, there's nowhere to bloody hide. You don't have showmanship or anything. It is basically all you have is, does it sound nice? And that is it. If you don't have that, it's not working. So again, it is quite simple, but it's quite effective. I do kind of like the kind of interlude that is playing, the kind of riff of the verse. It's pretty nice. As for the chorus, again, it's just like a typical hard rock chorus. There is nothing unique or special or different about it. As far as the theming that I say kind of runs through this album, that is kind of sci-fi kind of theme, and that other word which has escaped me, mystical kind of stuff. It's not exactly here. It's got a presence to a small degree, but overall it is basically just a kind of nice tone that they have throughout the song. And then you get a solo, and it's pretty short, and it's your like bog standard kind of solo you would expect from bands sort of like Evanescence or Papa Roach, Buck Cherry, Green Day type of thing. So just like not great bloody guitar, since they attempted, it would be kind of like a fair enough, but nah kind of moment. So kind of disappointing, but it is basically, as I say, the verse has a kind of nice riff to it, although it is quite simplistic in itself. There is a decent tone, the voice is very nice, but other than that, nothing overly special. Never Ending Road. I'm getting too confused of Never Ending Road and the track More Than Words Can Say. I think Never Ending Road, the verse actually has a kind of punk element to it, which is kind of unique. Just all of a sudden it has this very kind of old school punk vibe to it, kind of like your Sex Pistol Ramone type of days, and just the fact that it's been mixed in with this kind of tone that they've got, mixed in with the kind of punk, mixed in with the kind of hard rock nature. I kind of like, it's just a simplistic genre of being punk that they've just kind of put into a verse, and that is basically it. But when everything kind of combines together, it does kind of make it kind of interesting. It definitely is something I can kind of sit back, listen to, and like, this is an interesting kind of concept. My mind's not being challenged at all by this, of course not. And there's nothing musically interesting. It is basically just an interesting concept. Just the fact that the punk element's in there. Other than that, again, there's nothing special. There's no solo. More Than Words Can Say. The verse here is pretty damn great. I really do appreciate the verse of this song. It has a great rhythm to it. It has a great melody about it, and it just has such a perfect tempo to it. And the melody really, really works. And when you listen to it, it's really warming, and it really kind of touches with me when I hear it. It's just like, this is very pleasing. It sounds nice. Again, everything is simple. There's nothing musically gifted about it. It's just the fact that the voice, the pacing and the tones and effects that they've used all work in a good harmony here, and it's quite effective. Besides that, everything is bog standard again. Counting Stars, a parallel universe. Now this is the longest track, and this is kind of where the progressive element comes in, because this is a 9-minute song, at least I think it's 9 minutes. And yeah, it's a very slow burn. It takes around like 2 fucking minutes before the singer actually comes in, and when he comes in, he is very soft, near a whisper, and everything is so slow and simple, and it kind of goes like that for the majority of the song, to be honest. So it takes until about the 8-minute mark, maybe 7, to the point where the song kind of elevates. But here's the thing, it's kind of like Tool, where the song only elevates by basically just kind of the volume goes a step up, or the gain goes a step up. But other than that, nothing changes. It's not a multitude of choruses, it's not a vast variety of verses, it's not a vast variety of bridges, there's no intriguing interludes, there's no intriguing leads. It is basically just taking what you have and then raise it a step up. And then they just span that out for 9 fucking minutes. Which is all Tool really do. They don't really do anything, they just basically just increase the volume knob, because they're talentless hacks. So I hate that band. Obviously, Sixfornine, Counting Stars, I prefer the singer here. I like the tone that they have going through it. And the simplicity, this song definitely incorporates the most of the theme of it being that kind of very spiritual and out-of-body kind of experience, sci-fi space type of thing. And because of that, it's a really interesting, intriguing kind of sound that they are produced and what they're going for. The only shame is the fact that it is 9 minutes of the same thing. It's just a verse round and round and round, and then the chorus round and round and round again until you get to around 8 minutes and things get a slight little bit heavier. And then at the end they just kind of come back to the beginning again. So there's not really much to it. Oh, I forgot to say, more than words can say, I think the bridge kind of section has a lead. It's not exactly a lead solo, it's just like he does a very interesting, cool, catchy sounding riff, and he goes into the lead channel just so where the volume and everything kind of increases, and it sounds fine. It's a nice little riff. It's not a solo though, so there you go. Out of the blue, things kind of go back to like the kind of hard rock, heavy kind of shit, typical stuff, typical structure. There's a solo in it, so Out of the Blue as well as the following track, Sea of Lies. This is where your 2 best solos of the album are, because they're basically the longest and they actually seem like they actually try and attempt a variation kind of solo that actually has been thought out to a degree by a guy who's not that great on guitar, but he has thought about it. So you get 2 decent enough solos out of it. As for the songs themselves, as I say, they have that unique kind of sound to them, but other than that, structure, voice, everything is just the same. It's just like the typical hard rock shit. Meditation, Hyperjam, the last track, again, everything is quite typical and nothing overly unique about it, which is where the problem lies. It's got some catchy shit about it and some nice kind of sound effects, but it is nothing to really push the mind musically. If you want to hear something of a great musicianship, be it in the songwriting and the kind of effects used as well as actual playing, even if it's not advanced shred type of stuff, but advanced musicianship as in they can take a single note and follow that with a single note, but both of them tied together with the little space in between has been thought out to perfection, so them two little notes are absolutely dreamy together, and that's just two fucking notes that span the course of about 10 fucking seconds, because they linger, but they are so damn effective. That is a talented musician, where every single note has been thought through to perfection, and he knows how everything will work to perfection, instead of just throwing God knows fucking what at you. That is a perfect friggin' musician. You don't get anything like that here, nor showmanship of actual speed. None of that. No thoughtful, thought-provoking layering and structuring of the instruments here. No showmanship of great shred and two-handed tapping and shit like that. Everything is basically just hammer on and pulls off. Hammer on and pull off, just basically power chords and chords. That is basically all you're friggin' getting. With some of the kind of, riffs just sounding quite interesting just because they got like a heavy kind of punch to them and a cool kind of hit. And then there's some intriguing interludes. The kind of soundscape that they have in a few songs really kind of stands out, because it is a very interesting sound that they have going for them, being that mystical kind of thing. Other than that, it's pretty bland. The voice again, them two first tracks, I just don't know why the fuck he sang like that. But throughout the rest of the album, he definitely has a very good voice to him. It's not one of the groundbreaking voices, but it is definitely above average for a voice. Somewhere in like a 7, it's a good voice. As for all the instrumentation, it's like below the average. As for concept and theming, that is definitely quite high, where I could rate it about an 8, but it is not consistent through the album, which is therefore a problem, because whenever I try and listen to this the whole way through, I only get about 3 tracks in. I'm just like, God, there's nothing musically interesting to keep me in. I'm just basically here just for a sound effect and their theme. That won't carry an entire album that is up in like the 15 minutes, I think. And that's a shame. So, reviewing this album, what kind of score can I give this when basically everything is so bog standard, but the theming can be quite decent at times? It would probably just be a 6. It's better than the average shit, so above average. That's as far as it really gets. There's nothing overly good about it. If it was good, I'd keep coming back. I wouldn't. But if it was to be played, I wouldn't mind, and I would enjoy my time listening to it, but I wouldn't go out my way for it. And that'll be it. 6 out of 10. And that is it from me, guys, so I'll see you in the next video. Until then, bye.